autism. Horrible, horrible crisis.
Tremendous horror show what's happening in our country and some other countries, but mostly our country.
Acetaminophen, which is basically commonly known as Tylenol during pregnancy, can be associated with a very increased risk of autism.
There's something wrong when you see the kind of numbers that you have today versus 20 years ago.
Vaccines do not cause autism. Studies all over the world say it does not. What do you think?
Senator, if you show me those studies, I will absolutely, as I promised to Chairman Cassidy, I will apologize.
That is a very troubling response.
Hi, actual autistic person here. My name is William King Barnett. I'm a 29-year-old composer and content creator on the spectrum. I live in Queens, New York. I've seen Spider-Man a couple times. He's also from Queens. Although I think he spends most of his day in Times Square. He must work around there. Now, before I start stitching, let me just say, my goal here is not to be political. I have no opinions to offer on Republicans or Democrats, conservatives or liberals. I am not Fox News, and I am not Hollywood.
Great, just what I needed, a lecture from liberal Hollywood.
I am not disparaging President Trump or anyone who voted for him, nor am I disparaging Secretary Kennedy. However, I don't want to see autistic people be used as pawns in a game of chess that nobody wins. Now, let's fact check all of the faulty statements that Trump and RFK have presented here. Fact check number 1. No, autism is not a
Tremendous horror show.
It is also not
Among the most alarming public health developments in history.
also not a
Crisis.
not a
Tragedy.
and not a
Disease.
A lot of good comes from my autism, like my music. Autistic people are very smart, very talented, very intelligent, and often very successful when given a chance. Calling autism a
Tremendous horror show.
and a
Horrible crisis.
is quite harmful to an already stigmatized, misunderstood, and misrepresented group of millions of people.
Coming up, autism. Is it real or just another excuse for kids these days to forget their manners?
Who put this together? Are you autistic?
I just spent most of the time testing Chris to see if he's autistic. Not overly affectionate.
And it only causes greater anxiety for parents of autistic kids who really have no idea how to help them. Autistic people want to hear that they matter. Not that they're a horror show. Not that parents would rather have a sick or dead child than an autistic one. Now, fact check number 2. The 1970s Wisconsin study on autism.
In 1970, the biggest epidemiological study in history was done in Wisconsin. They looked at 900,000 children, and they were looking for autism. They knew what it looked like, and they were very, very precise about it, and they found an incident rate of 0.7, in other words, less than 1 per every 10,000 children. Today, our most recent numbers are 1 in every 31 kids.
RFK has consistently mischaracterized this study from over 50 years ago about the prevalence of autism, and then misleadingly compares it to a more comprehensive study conducted in 2022. This 1970 study established a prevalence rate of approximately 3.1 per 10,000 children. It was conducted on a very small sample size of children and used a very different definition for autism than we use today. RFK claims that all the children in the state of Wisconsin were tested.
900,000 children.
He claims.
Wrong.
The sample size was actually 280 children. So the fact that RFK cites a 55-year-old study with a super low sample size and a different definition of autism than we use today is quite concerning.
Concerned.
RFK's conclusions also leave out the fact that diagnosing autism was not as common in the 1970s as it is today. We've come so far in our research, our ability to identify autism, improved screening procedures, increased awareness, and better access to services. Also, the traditional gender and race gap that existed in the numbers of formal diagnoses is being filled. Traditionally, white boys like me were more likely to get a formal diagnosis. There was a large disparity in the number of women and girls being diagnosed. I went to a neurodivergent high school. I could count the number of girls on my fingers. Autism can present and be perceived differently in girls. This led to the myth that men are more likely to have autism than women, and what caused this gap, a gap that is now being filled. Also, people of color and children of color were less likely to be diagnosed traditionally. That gap is also now being filled, as well as self-diagnosis has become more of a thing in recent years. A formal diagnosis can be potentially hard to find, and thousands of dollars if you do, which is why an increasing number of people, especially adults, are doing it. This is yet another reason why we're seeing the numbers increase so exponentially in the US and abroad. Autism is not just a US phenomenon, like President Trump falsely claims. Other countries, such as Denmark and Japan, for example, have also seen a significant increase in their autism prevalence in the last few decades. Now, fact check number 3.
The MMR, I think, should be taken separately. This is based on what I feel.
Vaccines, specifically the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine, the MMR vaccine, cause autism. To lead research on this, RFK, he has tapped a man named David Geyer, a vaccine denier who reportedly practiced medicine without a license in the state of Maryland and had his medical license revoked from 10 other states. RFK is, of course, not the pioneer of the anti-vaccine movement.
Oh, don't tell me, Jethro. The pioneers?
That's right.
Started in the 90s by Andrew Wakefield, a disgraced former physician who was discharged for his conduct, then led by Jenny McCarthy, who is an actress, not a scientist or a doctor.
And I found some very interesting things from the leader of the anti-vaccination movement, Jenny McCarthy. And look at this one. Glasses.
Now, RFK is the newest snake oil doctor who believes he can cure autism by banning vaccines. And unlike Andrew and Jenny, he actually holds political power and authority to enact change based on this false belief. Pretty scary if you ask me. Vaccines work by giving you a small sample of whatever virus it is meant to protect you from, so your body builds an immunity to it. Depending on the vaccine, the virus samples may be live or inactivated. The vaccine in question, MMR, uses weakened live samples. It does not alter DNA. It does not increase the likelihood of one's children to be born with autism if that parent has been vaccinated. The common argument presented by the anti-vaccine movement is based on mere coincidence, as vaccination rates began rising at the same time that autism prevalence began rising. Therefore, people wrongfully believed that there was a correlation between the two. The first formal autism diagnosis was in 1930. Coincidentally, Pluto was also discovered in 1930. Does Pluto cause autism? Can President Trump cure autism by nuking Pluto? I guess there's only one way to find out, right? And actually, we've seen an increase in autism prevalence amidst a decline in MMR vaccination rates following the release of Andrew Wakefield's research in the 90s. Vaccines have stopped multiple epidemics in the last century, including measles and polio, and have saved millions of lives. Linking vaccines to autism confuses correlation with causation, and is a way of falsely justifying the repression of vaccines to the benefit of no one and the detriment of everyone, especially the children the anti-vax movement is supposedly trying to protect. And contrary to RFK's belief that autism
Destroys families.
Wrong.
the real destroyer of families, I think, is when these children get very sick and even die because they weren't vaccinated. That is a truly
Horrible, horrible crisis.
what he said. And this craziness goes beyond just vaccines. Fact check number 4.
Tylenol, don't take it. Don't take it.
Women taking Tylenol during pregnancy might be linked to their children having autism. Tylenol has been found to have a number of different side effects. Autism isn't one of them. This claim is false and laughably stupid. Except that I'm not laughing. And just when you thought this couldn't sound any more like a Billy Mays TV commercial,
But wait, there's more!
touting baseless conspiracy theories is one thing, but the HHS has unveiled another plan that is even more concerning. An autism registry. The HHS will collect personal data on people diagnosed with autism, including from Medicare and Medicaid records. This is a slippery slope that's more dangerous than ice skating in Central Park. Besides this being a major invasion of privacy and consent for millions of people, it is also an echo of history. For the Nazis had a disability registry of their own, also started under the guise of people's health and safety. Disabled people were the first targets of the Nazi regime, long before the final solution was presented, targeting mainly Jews, as well as queer people and Romas, people with physical and developmental disabilities, many of whom today would be called autistic, were tracked and personal data was collected on them. They were told they had no place in the Third Reich. Doctors recruited these children on the registry for experiments and research, like Hans Asperger, where we get the outdated term Asperger's or Asperger syndrome from, which is a perceived elite, more intelligent form of autism. Hans's research is outdated based on what we know today, and you could say that he was full of something that definitely wasn't burgers.
Why are there hamburgers in your underwear? Oh my god! You're saying I have Asperger's? I got vaccinated from the school, and now clearly I have Asperger's. Very funny. Well, I'm glad you think Asperger's is funny.
The perceived smarter children, the ones more capable of serving German society, who until recently would be called Asperger's, were kept alive. The others, who today would be called autistic, were either sterilized or sent to the concentration camps and euthanasia centers, along with physically disabled people. In the end, the Nazi regime murdered 250,000 disabled people.
Such a tremendous horror show.
Agreed.
The comparison to Nazi Germany here is a little extreme. However, the Holocaust didn't start with gas chambers. That was the end of the story, not the beginning. And it began with some of the rhetoric and plans we're seeing now. And just when you thought all this couldn't get any crazier,
But wait, there's more!
fact check number 5.
This is a preventable disease.
RFK believes that autism can be cured. He claims autism is a
Disease.
Wrong.
and that it is being caused by an
Environmental toxin.
without evidence.
These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old.
Wrong.
This disputes all literature and all qualified people who have studied autism. We don't really know what causes autism. We have theories, most of them ludicrous, and snake oil cures like bleach, which can cause permanent gastrointestinal damage and even death. We can't cure autism. This false hope that desperately afraid parents embrace does not help anyone, especially their autistic children. There will always be snake oil doctors trying to cure autism. They can't. And we can't. What we can do, however, is ensure autistic people are able to access the help and services and support that they need. For parents of autistic children, what you can do is get your kids the help and the services they need, and do it as early as possible. You don't have to wait for a formal diagnosis. If you have any concerns about your kid's development, do something about it right away, especially because services for adults are rather limited. Don't wait for a cure. For any theater fans here, let me put it this way. Godot is not coming to cure your child's autism. Now let's talk about what kind of help. Get them special ed classes, or even find them a school for neurodivergent people if you can. Get them speech, occupational, and developmental therapy. Also consider getting them a socializing coach, perhaps even a dating coach, and even group therapy might be beneficial as well. It was for me. If you can't afford these services, find resources online and follow and subscribe to other autistic content creators aside from just me. Follow the experts, educate yourself on autism. Many qualified doctors and researchers post on YouTube and elsewhere, just like me. Talk to people and parents ahead of you in dealing with autistic children. Find books on autism. Here are a few recs from me. Don't just listen to RFK and the media. Find local community-based neurodivergent organizations to get involved with. Also, some states have tax-funded services available for neurodivergent people, like my home state of California. Please look into them and be supportive of your autistic children. Be their best friend. Be understanding, be loving, be patient, use positive reinforcement. For any teachers watching this, please make sure you give your neurodivergent students extra attention. They might need extra help with their homework and their studies. Educate yourself on autism as well, so you can identify the signs in your students. Be patient and understanding of them. And if you feel like you can't help them or don't feel qualified to help them, consider recommending special ed teachers and classes that can. And to any autistic people watching, what you can do is be open with your diagnosis. You'll be the proof that autistic people are not how they're portrayed by Trump and RFK and the media and the stigma. Being open about your diagnosis will lead to more acceptance, not less. I can testify from personal experience when I came out of the autistic closet. Find your community. For those in New York, join Autistic Adults NYC for sure. For those not in New York, get on meetup.com, find a neurodivergent group, or find groups that share your interests. And if you can't, start your own. Love yourself. Focus on yourself and your passions and follow them. And know that you are strong, you are beautiful, powerful, and equally as deserving of love and acceptance as anyone else. And don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And please share this video. I say this not just because I want more views and subscribers, but because I want to make sure everyone knows the scope of misinformation on autism. This is not the last you'll hear from me.
Let's get it back to maybe 1 in 10,000 or 1 in 20,000 or maybe none in 20,000. So we're going to save a lot of children from a tough life, really tough life. We're going to save a lot of parents from a tough life.
So there will be a sequel to this video, hopefully starring Liam Neeson.
I will look for you. I will find you, and I will kill you.
Okay, scratch that, just starring me. So stay tuned.
Until we meet again!